Sekeres Price for Friday, March 15th, 2024, coming to you from the Go-Goat Sports Studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. If you're heading downtown for a game or for an event, make it a staycation. Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rate. Some blackout dates may apply. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, Grady Sass, hitting switches, conducting things. And this show, presentation of Applewood Auto Group.
And Applewood Nissan in Langley has the Nissan Leaf. You know the Leaf, one of the first on the scene in the electric vehicle neighborhood. The 2024 Leafs up to $13,000 cash back, including a rebate. So you can start to jump into an electric vehicle now at Applewood Nissan in Langley. It's all good at Applewood.
Tim Horton's poll question today. We're asking you, who do you want in the first round? The LA Kings, the Nashville Predators, the Vegas Golden Knights? Don't care. You want Minnesota, St. Louis? Write them in. Vote at Sekeres Price on Twitter and YouTube. Tim Hortons roll up is here for Tim's 60th. Roll up to win is here for Tim's 60th anniversary. You can play on the Tim's app. Daily cash jackpot, $10,000. Chance to win the all-electric Volkswagen ID4 sun-soaked Hilton getaway. Download the Tim's app. Roll up is on until March 31st. I've gone with the LA Kings. I've been steadfast on this. They just don't scare me offensively. And I don't think they have the level of goaltending that Nashville does. It may well be the most boring playoff series of all time, given that 1-3-1 that they play, that passive 1-3-1 that drew boos from their home fans the other night for all the inactivity. But I think it is the easiest route for the Vancouver Canucks. And frankly, after a season like this, I think the expectations have to change a bit. You're not just happy to be in the postseason. I think you want to win a round, if not for the purposes of this year, or at least get that feeling in this core group for future years. So I voted the Kings, and frankly, the Kings by a mile.
Really?
Well, I mean, I didn't really consider St. Louis or Minnesota because it's going to be difficult for them to make it up. So
the Kings,
if you're telling me they're an option, then
the Kings might very well be the easiest path. But after all these years without playoff hockey inside Rogers Arena, I just can't abide. I can't sign up for that to be the first dip in the pool. That's like jumping into an unheated pool for your first swim. I'm going to say the Preds, and I know it's a tough route, and you see Saros standing on his head. But the Preds do open things up a little bit more now, and that plays into the Canucks' hands. I just think the Canucks are a better team, so I think the Canucks can still beat the Preds. I'll say Preds.
See, I think that everyone is just going to be so euphoric about the return of the Stanley Cup playoffs that the actual quality and X's and O's of what's happening on the ice.
Game one, maybe, but after that,
secondary.
No, we want to see good.
See,
good
when
series.
I was living back east, attended the Buffalo-Ottawa series. This was the first time the Senators had made it to the Stanley Cup playoffs in their incarnation. Two low-scoring teams, like 2-1 games. People didn't care. Just happy to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Grady, where are you going on the poll? Who you want?
I'll take Nashville. Stylistically, I think it allows the Canucks to play their game at their full potential, and they played Nashville pretty well for the most part the last few years.
Swept them this year.
Yeah.
Saros is the only wild card there. Everything else,
that's it. That's the easiest way to take a lesser group of 18 skaters and win a playoff
but you got the best offensive team. Like, you'd like to think that, a good goalie is a good goalie, but you've also got the best offense. Like, shouldn't that best offense win some of the battles versus a good goalie?
And they're pretty
good offense, like in pitching. Good pitching beats good hitting. Good goaltending beats good offense.
They're pretty reliant on that top line of Forsberg, O'Reilly, and I want to say it's Nyquist right now. So
it is. He's been on a heater.
Yeah,
actually.
and Forsberg seems like he's getting 5-6 shots and scoring almost every game. Roman Josi has had a tremendous season, really pushing for that probably third spot in the Norris. So, they're pretty top heavy. They got some big bruisers on like Jeremy Lauzon and Luke Shen, like the Bash brothers back there. I know they play on different pairs. Lauzon's on pace to break Matt Martin's single season hits record.
But they're counting hits a little.
Yeah, I know it's subjective, but they say they're going to be better with it now. So I really LA just that 1-3-1, and they can suffocate teams. That gives me a little bit of concern. But
Yeah.
the goaltending, you're right. It's Saros over Talbot all day.
I want to shout out listener Mike. I meant to do this yesterday. He came up to me at Park Casino on Wednesday and says, Matt, love the show. I said, thanks. He goes, and I owe you a thank you. I go, oh, what for? He goes, unlike some other shows, you get right into the meat of it, right off the top of your show. I don't have to wait around to hear what you had for breakfast and things like that. I know. Thank you. We had a blast at Park, and Mike, I hope you're okay with us delaying the meat and potatoes here of the show to shout you out.
Yes.
Attending Park steps away for Rogers Arena, 15% off the game day menu with your game day ticket. Okay, our top story, the playoff push and changes to the defense pairings at a spirited practice Thursday. We'll get to the spirited part first, but I want to play this clip from Brock Boeser because Brock Boeser is the longest tenured Vancouver Canucks player. And there's a phrase in here that really stands out. Take a listen on Boeser talking about how everything down the stretch here in these last 15 games to be viewed through a playoff prism.
For sure, yeah. I mean, it is. I think we are at that point. Like, you know, that's a team that's knows how to play in the playoffs, and you know, we can't make mistakes like those. I mean, I haven't played technically in the playoffs, but you know, other guys in our room, you know, talk about it, and you can't make those little details. You got to be invested in, you know, winning those puck battles and, you know, getting pucks deep, and yeah.
Bubble doesn't count.
7 years, 465 games, regular season, and says, I haven't technically played. Technically, he has, because the series against St. Louis and Vegas in the bubble were Stanley Cup playoff
It's
series.
in the history books as playoff series, yeah.
They, of course, beat Minnesota in a play-in series that year with an expanded postseason. But I mean, that stood out for me for two reasons. Number one, how long has Brock been here? And then secondly, as you say, I think there's some NHL players that just look at it and say that postseason doesn't count. That wasn't the real McCoy.
I certainly think that teams like the Wild, whom the Canucks beat in the play-in that year, I think teams like that say, yeah, it doesn't count. Like, they weren't into it. I think they had, you know.
Well, St. Louis came right out with Berube and said, in defense of their Stanley Cup championship, and said that wasn't what we did last year. And we had trouble getting up for those games.
I would guess there's a delineation line, though, where teams that made the Final Four, certainly, and beyond, were probably like, no, this counts.
Oh, Tampa.
This counts.
Don't
counts.
for a second try and
Dallas.
Take it off Tampa's resume. Dallas as well. Rick Bowness took the Stars to the Cup final.
Even Montreal the next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
On their run.
That's right. Yeah.
So spirited practice, battle drill where Filip Hronek and Conor Garland get into it. Observers, including Jeff Patterson, punches were thrown, gloves were not dropped. A little bit of snarl in practice. Here's head coach Rick Tocchet on how he addressed it.
Yeah, I think guys need it, but also you got to be smart too. You can't, I let it go more than I usually do because, you want to test guys. You can still battle without taking penalties. Stupid penalties, and some guys took penalties out there, and that's what we're trying to get over. If a guy beats you out of the corner, hooking a guy or slashing a guy makes no sense. Hopefully your buddy holds a four for you until you get back in the play. So that's why I let it go, to prove the point that you get frustrated, you can't take stupid penalties.
Okay.
Good job, coach. Oh, I like it.
I mean,
you know what? Let's use this as a teachable moment.
I mean, other workplaces don't have physical fights, but I mean,
therein lies the difference between their workplace.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody's workplace has confrontation. I mean, not here, of course. Matt and I have never disagreed on anything.
Not a once.
No.
We see eye to eye on snow tires.
As you can imagine, Matt is just easy going. Like, it's just, everything is just easy.
Tyler Myers is back at practice. We anticipate he will play Saturday against the Washington Capitals at Rogers Arena. He's had a good year. He was a whipping boy for Canucks fans for years. And this year, under Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote, he has found his game, cleaned up some bad habits. Let's hear from the coach on the big fella, Tyler Myers.
I think he's been one of the best guys to coach for me. A super guy in the room, never complains, and I think his game's gotten better because he listens. Yeah, he had his struggles early. You know, he knows there's certain things we don't want him to do, taking the puck back all the time. He had some bad habits back in the day. I think that a lot of those habits are gone, and I think we're a better team when he's in the lineup. I really do.
And the stats would prove that out. He plays 18:56 a night. He's the third most used defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks, and that's been pretty steady all year. Ian Cole's close, but Myers has played more. You can teach an old dog new tricks, 34 years old, but here's Tyler Myers getting coached differently, told to do different things, and he's abiding. And he is part of this defense pair shuffle that we saw at practice on Thursday. Hughes and Hronek are going to stay together. Soucy and Myers together, and then Ian Cole with Nikita Zadorov playing the right side.
He has done that periodically.
Right. But we had seen Soucy playing the right side, but so it's now off to Zadorov to play the right side. And part and parcel of that is that Coach Tocchet wanted to get the pair of Soucy, the jumbo pair of 6'5", 210-pound Carson Soucy, besides 6'8", 230-pound Tyler Myers. Here's what Tocchet likes about that pair.
Yeah, they had a really good stretch, playing a more of a shutdown role. I thought they did a real nice job. Unfortunately, Seuss got so yeah. I mean, we do like that pairing. I'm not sure it's going to whether we stay with it or not, but we'd be crazy not to definitely get those back in the mix because they were pretty good a month or 2 months ago.
They were. The worry is that if he likes them that much, is he going to overplay that pair? And as we have often said with Tyler Myers, the less, and no one's calling for 10 minutes a game from Tyler Myers, but the more efficient they are with his playing time, generally the better he plays. And so if they're tempted to give these guys 22 minutes a night, right behind the Hughes and Hronek pair, I don't know if they're going to look as good. It's certainly Tyler Myers, who hasn't had the rest that Carson Soucy has because of injury. So we'll see. It's all about usage, but I am intrigued by these three pairs now.
Practice here on Friday, Elias Pettersson and Elias Lindholm are sharing a line with Conor Garland. Interesting. We're going away from the three centers now.
I asked for this. This is what I wanted.
Is that Lindholm on the wing, Grady? Is that what we're seeing?
Not sure yet.
Okay.
Just know the trio is together.
Well, Garland playing the right wing, I would suspect. I suppose he could flip over and play the other side, but that's interesting. Okay, we'll get a little more information there and then let you know.
Also from practice this morning, a lengthy conversation, an abnormally long conversation between Adam Foote and Quinn Hughes, as noted by Jeff Patterson as well, which, it's, again, getting close to playoff time. It's probably, these are the moments where Adam Foote's experience defensively, especially, obviously, he was never gifted offensively like Quinn is, but, these are probably very useful conversations for Quinn Hughes to be having with Adam Foote as the going gets a little bit tougher and habits need to be just
it's an Adam Foote type of year, if you remember him as a player.
Yeah.
And just how meaningful he was as a winner on Canadian teams, on Colorado Avalanche teams. He was your stopper. He was your short areas, no space, take up the space, play physical, intimidate, all those things that we'll see more in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, frankly, I think when Rick Tocchet talks about wanting a big defense, I think it's as much a nod to his defensive coach, Adam Foote, and a preference there for a style of defenseman. But just back on Zadorov on the right side and reuniting Soucy and Myers. We've talked about it all year. Which one of these lefties is going to go play the right side when the chips are down in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Because when you're lining up your best six defensemen here, with all due respect to Noah Juulsen, who has had a good season, a step-up season, you have four lefties and two righties. We know Hronek and Myers will be on the right side. Who's going to be the lefty that switches over and plays the offside? Blake, you've got 15 games to figure this out. I hear J-Pat everything through a playoff prism right now, ringing in my ears. You've got 15 games to figure this out. Frankly, I'm agnostic here, whether it's Soucy, whether it's Cole, whether it's Zadorov, whoever looks best on the right side. I think you shake out your pairs to accommodate that gentleman, and then you fill in around there.
And I know they've used Cole on the right side, but just my logic, my reasoning is suggesting it should be one of the big guys. Because if they're feeling a little bit uncomfortable on their offside, what can overcompensate for that, Matthew? Wingspan. The ability to, even if you're not feeling natural on your turn, your reach can overcome a lot of that.
Look how horny you just made him.
It's just all washing over top of him.
Oh, my goodness.
It grosses me out a little bit. It grosses me out a little bit.
10 years ago.
For those that aren't aware, Matthew Sekeres, for whatever reason.
Who's not aware, Grady?
Well,
Who's not aware
we got
at this
some
point?
new viewers on YouTube.
I think we should educate the new ones.
You know what? I'll shut up, Matt.
Like,
You
we'll
tell
take a
us
minute
why.
here. 10 years ago, maybe 12. Craig J. Button, TSN Director of Scouting. We're talking draft, of course, because we talked a lot of draft in those days. We're looking at prospects. Now, being a draftnik myself, very familiar with the National Football League draft and their criteria, and we started hearing more and more about wingspan, particularly with the pass rushers and the offensive tackles, as well as in the NBA, right, where length matters. And I watching the Zdeno Chara effect on the 2011 Stanley Cup final. I'll need another minute, Blake.
Yeah, get comfy there, Blake.
I asked him about wingspan. They chortled at me. They laughed. Now, wingspan.
That part's
every
reflexive,
day
the laughing.
Accepted part of the discussion around NHL defensemen. You could turn on a hockey show in any of the 32, Mark. Thank you, Blake. And you will hear people talking about the big defensemen and their wingspan and their ability to affect space. Okay.
We're moving on.
Moving right along.
Carson
So
Soucy's
Friday,
wingspan.
we're playing golf at Northlands and a wingspan shout. Love it. Elias Pettersson did not love his game Wednesday against the Colorado Avalanche. 0 points in 3 games against Colorado this year, but as we've talked about with PD, it gets worse from there. No points in 2 games against Dallas. 1 assist in 2 games against Vegas. Goal and assist in the games against Winnipeg, and of course fattened up on Edmonton early in the year. But against the best in the West, PD hasn't stepped up. And he owned it Thursday after practice. Take a listen.
Yeah, I mean, we can always look and learn from video, but I think it comes down to us players as well, to understanding what type of, where we are in the game. And I mean, I was not having my best game, so I need to be a lot better, but just make the right plays and yeah, be sometimes happy with the simple.
I mean, I'm sure you're your own sort of worst critic when you say you didn't have your best game. Like, what was missing, do you think, in your game last night? What wasn't there?
I keep that to myself.
I don't quite get that. Do you get that?
The keeping it to himself part.
Just not wanting to tip his hand on his kryptonite to people in the world, maybe?
Perhaps, or maybe
Doesn't want to create a headline.
Yeah, doesn't want the headline and the soundbite out there about.
Yeah,
I think there might be some pride at play there as well, Blake.
Yeah, I mean,
because I think he knows the conversation that is being had.
Yeah,
and I also think he knows he hasn't been very good this year against some of the best teams.
I mean, I like the clip up until that point, and I don't dislike that part of the clip. I'm confused by it a little bit.
The most important part is he owned it. He understood.
Yeah.
He took responsibility and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So if he doesn't want to get into the nitty gritty, so be it. So be it. Fair enough.
Karan on YouTube, and talking about that Pettersson line. Lindholm is more natural center. EP had to go to left wing if they're trying it.
Well, that is what I think we're coming down to here. That Lindholm just is not comfortable playing the wing for whatever reason. Or old buddy Dave Tomlinson used to say it should be easy peasy. You just go up and down. You don't have all the extra responsibility.
Guys,
Now, this
let's
could-
interject. Let's interject here because I think it was a moment in time at practice as they actually did line rushes. It was back to Höglander, Pettersson, and Suter.
But again, you have 15 games left. You need things to be tip-top, spit polish for the playoffs. So is that something you have to take a look at again before these 15 games are up? I would say yes. Yes, you do. Because at the very least, Blake, you know you're going to be in games where you need a goal late. And at that point, you have no choice but to load up your best 6 forwards and roll 2 lines. And that is Elias Lindholm playing somewhere in the top 6.
Absolutely it is.
And if it's playing the middle where Pettersson has to play left wing, so be it.
Yeah.
I mean, Pettersson's got his bag here. He's going to be a center long term. It's temporary because I don't suspect Lindholm is resigning.
You know you've got a third line when Joshua's back.
Right.
You know you've got that.
And one of the best third lines in hockey. One of the main ingredients in your recipe for success was that great third line.
So why wouldn't you try to give a booster shot to the top 6?
Well, that's what they were doing when they made this acquisition.
Yeah.
And everybody thought it would work well because Lindholm's not a guy who demands the puck. He's a guy who plays very well without the puck. You look at Pettersson, who's great on the puck, and you think to yourself, Lindholm's a good finisher. Pettersson's a good creator. This should work marvelously. Lindholm's also good as a net front guy on the power play.
I know.
I can understand all the reasons, and the discussion around that acquisition was this guy's the perfect fit for what Vancouver has in the top 6. He's the most seamless fit and the missing ingredient. I bought all that talk.
Matt, we've seen sports undergo lots of revolutions lately about how teams are constructed, how they line up. The batting lineup in baseball drastically changed based on where managers now think, the big hitter should play at the top rather than 4, 5, 6. Soccer, they have a lineup often, a structure with the ball and then a structure without the ball. How about this because I know players hate lineup blenders. What if you got 2 lineups? You've got an A and a B. And the coach just needs to say, guys, we're going to A lineups for this period or in this from till the end of the period. When you're in need of offense, you go the A lineup, which in this case would be Lindholm and Pettersson together.
Yeah. Or is it the lotto line?
When you're up 3-1, there's a C line. There's your desperation line when you're really desperate.
That's a fair point, Grady.
But when you're up 3-1, kind of wanting just to maintain, you go to B lineup, and it's the 3 centers. And a spreading of the wealth.
Yes.
A maintenance setup.
But does Grady have the trump card here? Are you going lotto line anyways? In which case Lindholm can center a quote unquote second.
That's
line
like a
when you're
third.
chasing
That's
them.
like a third period setup.
Yeah,
like when you're
they're down a
super
goal.
desperate. If you're tied at the start of the second, still no. I'm still just trotting out the top 6 with Lindholm and Pettersson.
Or if you're down 2 early, where you got a lot of games still to get through.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, the YouTube chat's saying lotto line, and you can go Hogs, Lindy, Garland.
Yeah.
Jason on YouTube saying Miller should help get PD get going on the lotto line. So,
but as part of that,
I don't think
lotto line
Tocchet really
as
likes loading it up.
No, I don't think he does.
No.
I think he realizes he needs more balance because here's the thing you do when you go to lotto line. You tell the other coach, great. Match up whoever you want to match up here, and you don't really have to worry as much about the other 3 lines.
Now, if Lindholm was doing better than he's shown so far, then perhaps you could actually have, a loaded up second line.
Well,
maybe that's a stretch. Loaded up.
Loaded is probably a stretch, but I don't disagree that if Lindholm was great, then that gives you in at center alongside Garland and whomever, then that gives you a second arrow in the quiver.
Okay, but do you guys think
and makes life a little bit more difficult on the opposing coach in terms of line matching? But if he's not going, then you're playing right into your opponent's hand. Because if lotto line goes quiet for a game or 2, that's all they're going to need.
does anybody think that Lindholm and Pettersson has been given long enough time together? period.
No, that's
No.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
15
like, so-
more games, you need more run there.
But
look-
also, are they just not a good fit? They're not the fleetest of foot.
No, that's fair.
And a guy like Hoglander, while I love him,
Mm-hmm.
you need him to go get the pucks, and
Right.
he's a pretty good puck retriever, but is he?
But he's the only one on that line.
right.
Yeah.
So how about you really shake it up? You put Hoglander with Miller and Boeser, and you put Mikheyev with Lindholm and Pettersson to add some speed.
Well, Mikheyev and Pettersson hasn't really worked of late, and he's shown better with Miller and Boeser. So do you really want to go away from that?
Like the other thing that I think that is at play here is that I think there is some ego managing with Elias Lindholm after getting off to a sluggish start with the Canucks after that 2-goal game, and then hearing his name in trade rumors. I think there might be a little bit of, okay, let's play him at center because that's where he's comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's where he's ultimately going to be playing, whether it's here or elsewhere.
Let's
let him get over the, sourness of hearing his name in those trade rumors on the Gensel file. And, when you feel he's back in a better headspace, then you once again try.
Well, I think both him and Pettersson
And
would
again,
say,
if he wants to play center there, and Petey, we love what you're doing. You're an all situation centerman, but our best lineup right now is you playing left wing with Lindholm in the middle.
both Pettersson and Lindholm could probably make the argument our wingers aren't the kind of players that deserve to play with us or can play with us, and that's
Less
why
so Lindholm.
production is down.
Less so Lindholm, particularly if we get to a world where it's Garland and Joshua.
But I've got
I hear what you're-
zero time for the ego thing. If Draisaitl and Malkin can play on the wing,
yep,
when they get condensed with their superstars, then
Well,
I'm sure Lindholm can.
And
too.
I got zero. I'm with you on the ego thing, but again, you're managing personalities as much as anything now as a head coach in professional sports. And if he needs a little time to get over what happened last week, I completely understand if it's soft landing right now for Elias Lindholm with the full intention to, okay, we are going to have to try some things down the road, and we need you to be amenable to it. We need you to be a solution-based employee as opposed to a guy who's rooted in his ways.
And on that note, Jake on YouTube says Lindholm needs to be in the top 6 in the stretch run.
Yeah,
and
I think so too.
Yeah,
they
I mean,
acquired
I think
him
you got to try
to spark that top 6.
Yeah.
Now, playoffs is a bit different because it's all about matchups, and if you can roll, 3 effective lines, that's where you can start to win some battles, especially on home ice.
Playoffs changes everything.
Yeah, and here's the other thing: is this game had a practice Thursday as well, and caught my ear. I think Rick Tockett's a little concerned about playoff style hockey in his winger group. Wall work better on the boards. Let's take a listen.
I wish we were a little bit better on the boards, a little bit more of a better wall team. We are, we want to make plays. We want to, scoot and play fast. But I think if everybody gets better 5%, we got some guys that are never going to be great wall guys. Let's face it, and that's okay. But can they play 5 or 10% better on the wall or win a battle? I think that's the way we approach it here. Instead of having, I just think we can, if we spread out everybody getting better, I think that's the way we can be better as a team.
I think that's the next frontier in terms of roster construction for Alvin and Tocchet. They fixed the defense this year, and they are going to have to continue tilling the soil because of the UFA, because of the free agents that are at play. But I think the next sort of gambit for them is let's get the sorts of wingers that play Rick Tocchet style of hockey. Guys who are the profile of PDG, but just with
it's funny.
better.
I thought the same thing.
Exactly.
PDG, yes.
Plumbers, guys who are going to go in the corners, do the puck retrieval to get the puck to these terrific offensive players, Pettersson, Miller, Boeser, and some others. So
I don't think they're a bad team. And I don't think he was saying they're a bad team. He's just saying if everybody was 3% better, we'd be great.
5 to 10.
I think if all it needs is 3.
That's an interesting calculation, Blake. How did you quantify it as such?
Well, I dove deep into the wall stats per 60. And that's what I came up with.
Are we getting that on NHL Edge coming up soon? Wall stats.
That's on Blake Edge.
Mhm.
No, not available on the World Wide Web. It's
Do they have passes
Exclusive
thwarted?
content.
passes thwarted.
Yes. Blocked passes. That's what I'm interested
They have
in.
interceptions. That's in standard
Okay.
stats.
All right.
It's like an OnlyFans, but it's just Blake's exclusive wall.
It's just me reading
work.
stats.
Yeah.
Wall work.
For the low price of $5.99 per month.
What's he wearing?
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
Frisky Friday. here.
Elliot Friedman reporting the Canucks are looking to re-sign Dakota Joshua, Tyler Myers, Teddy Bluger. I mean, a little bit of that is no duh. But it is interesting if they're zeroing in on those three, just because it may well mean that some of the other UFAs are more likely to be cast adrift. And we have a college free agent signing from the Vancouver Canucks. And look, we talked about this last week or so. It's going to be a little more difficult this year for the Canucks to sign college free agents. Typically, college free agents look at what kind of opportunity is readily at hand, meaning you have a lot of holes in your lineup, but also if you're out of the playoffs, the opportunity to actually play NHL games, make NHL money, in some cases burn that first year of the contract. So the Canucks don't have those sorts of selling points with college free agents this year. But hey, if you're going down this road, and very few college free agents have turned into frontline NHL scorers, why not do so with a defensive-minded right shot defenseman? Christian Felton from Merrimack College, 7 points in 26 games this year. He's on an ATO with the Abbotsford Canucks. He has signed a contract for next year, a 6'1", 185-pound defenseman. Chris Faber, of Canucks in-house, reports he's averaging 22.5 minutes per game this year. So, boy, he is leaned on a fair bit by his coach at Merrimack.
First thing I thought of was
College.
they must have Chris Tanev-like conviction on this player. And nobody knew who Chris Tanev was when the Canucks signed Chris Tanev. And with no counting stats to speak of for this player, really in any of his 3 years of college, they must really feel there's a Chris Tanev-like element to this player, playing that many minutes and being a good defensive defenseman. So
he's an Ohio guy, like JT Miller, and spent 1 year with the Vernon Vipers of the British Columbia Hockey League. He was also at Canucks development camp. Rick Dollywall reporting he's been out since February with an upper body injury, so he's probably a week or so away from actually playing for
and
the
actually
Abbotsford.
signing that ATO, because that's what we're just assuming what will happen. It hasn't actually been released yet.
They probably want to make sure that he's healthy enough to get out there. And
I thought they had him on their official channels, social media channels.
No, he signed. The ATO is not.
Yeah,
it's
he
a
signed
separate
for next
transaction.
year.
That's a separate
okay,
transaction.
okay.
So
Sorry,
they haven't done that.
sorry.
But the other big issue is that Abbotsford's just got everybody coming back from injury. And so their blue line is super crowded.
And that's why they just traded Quinn Schwinneman, loaned, I guess, AHL trade, because they also got to make room for a DPD.
Well, he's already there. He practiced today with the team.
Yeah.
So, EPD is there, and they add this player as well, at least to practices. We'll see. We'll see who gets the call.
So it's a two-way contract for Felton. It's $775 in the NHL. It's $82.5 in the minors. There's some signing and games played bonuses involved as well. We'll see how he does going forward. The general managers are meeting the National Hockey League after their trade deadline extravaganza last Friday. And looky, what's on the agenda? LTIR. You don't say.
There's not a whole lot of hope that anything gets accomplished there because
because it's a CBA matter.
Yeah, and also just they don't think that head office has any problems with what's going on. So, without that rubber stamp, is there anything likely to
Does head
happen?
office not have problems with it because it's been mostly Sunbelt teams doing it, justifying their existence?
Well,
and the brilliance of the commissioner's strategy of flooding the Sunbelt with franchises.
I saw Pierre LeBrun bring up the point. There is a player side to this. Do the players have any problem with this?
Yeah.
Do they feel like it? And there is a thought that they don't. Like, it might be that nobody's got any problem with this except for the odd GM.
Fans. Except for the fans.
Yeah.
Who, of course, are never listened to in this league.
Yeah.
I mean, it took people a decade plus screaming bloody murder. The game's terrible. The clutching, the grabbing, the holding, the trapping, the dead puck era. It took them like a decade and a half to fix that. They could have fixed it in one fell swoop.
Okay, but how many markets truly feel aggrieved every year by the one or two teams that are doing the LTIR manipulation? Is it 6 to 10? That's still not even half the league.
No. Even if you wanted to take the fans out of it, what you were arguing last week, if the big backdiving contract, like Luongo signed, like Marian Hossa and others signed, violates the spirit of the CBA, even if it was fined by the letter of the CBA, do these LTIR trade deadline load-ups, or before the season even load-ups, as we saw with Tampa, do they not do the same thing? May well be legal by the letter of the CBA, but certainly violate the spirit of the CBA, because when you're $17 to $20 million over the salary cap,
something's happened.
You are now creating a competitive advantage based on financial wherewithal that the salary cap, which we lost a season for, was designed to fix.
Yeah,
it's the
something's
same
happened.
Bloody logic.
The other thing that might get some traction at these GM meetings is overtime, because a lot of the guys in that room, saw Ron Francis quoted on this and others, that loved 3-on-3 overtime at the outset. So they're not poo-pooing 3-on-3. They just think, and it's funny, they all have strong feelings about it and say, yeah, it's gone down. And yet all of them have their coaches playing the same way with the big regroups. So the actual up ice forays in overtime has gone down with all these regroups. Passing back to the goalie. The goalies are integral now in overtime mustering. So what do? They're thinking of an over and back line, whether it's the blue line, whether it's center ice.
Mm-hmm. For me, overtime is kind of like sex. Even when it's bad, it's good.
Well, then it ties like kissing your sister.
Wow.
So
overlapping
while I
here.
have noticed, yes, the regrouping, recircling, backtracking, which used to always drive me crazy in soccer. Why do they pass the ball backwards so much? Because they're trading angles of attack.
Mm-hmm.
So I can deal with what we're seeing here. If it got more pronounced from here, then I might be on board with changing.
How about 10 minutes? Would you go to 10 minutes? Too exhausting.
So is that to eliminate the shootout?
Yeah.
As you know, I'm a bigger shootout fan than most. But if they wanted to go do that, I would have no problem with it because it's entertaining. Like overtime is really entertaining.
What do you
find myself?
What do you think is the highest team, like the most visits to the shootout by a single team?
Is it Boston this year? Don't they have a ton of?
They go past 60 a lot, but they haven't got to the shootout a lot.
Okay, hit me.
It's 10 for the Montreal Canadiens.
I see that.
They're also leading the league in past 60 minutes.
Weren't the Leafs up there? Like the Leafs didn't have a lot of regulation.
No, they're only at 6. But that's sort of where the biggest group is. A lot of teams are at 6. There's actually very few past 6 that I can see. Kings are at 7.
So let's extrapolate that out. So 7 or 8. So one every 10 games you play in the league goes to a shootout. I'm okay with that.
The Canucks have been twice. The Oilers have been 3 times.
No, I know.
Ducks have been twice. Blackhawks have been twice.
Mm-hmm. Well, 3-on-3 overtime was terrific.
Winnipeg Jets have been to 1 shootout. So same with the Devils. Oh my God.
No, but because 3-on-3 overtime is doing for the most part what we asked 3-on-3 overtime to do, and that was end the game reasonably quickly.
Would it be weird if they just went
frankly in entertaining fashion? Like some of the rushes and the passes on 3-on-3 are extraordinary.
How about this? How about you don't go to 10 minutes? How about you just add 2 more? You go to, is that just weird to have a 7-minute overtime? Because it's not a round, not a nice round number, but the extra 2 minutes might nip it all in the bud.
Right. And preserve you the extra time spent on shootout. Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm open to those sorts of ideas as well. And here's the other thing. I like the fact that these GMs gather yearly in this at this time of the year.
Yeah.
And think about refining the product for the next year. I think that's really good. We criticize the National Hockey League a lot on this show, and rightfully so, I would argue. This is good process. I like when the managers get together in a room. Okay, blank canvas here, guys. Here's the things that are coming up. Here's what our fans are saying. What do you think? And throw some ideas at the wall.
And it's a different layer of accountability from the
Yep.
Board of Governors.
Yep.
Right. So,
Yep. But frankly, these are the guys who should be doing it, right? Because these are, in a lot of cases, the chief hockey officer of every club, right?
yeah, Board of Governors are often owners. So.
Like I frankly find it a little bit weird that you have NFL owners as involved as you do in the rules side of things.
Although NFL owners are the nerdiest of owners.
Well,
probably.
and they also carry a lot of power, and they also have big profile, which NHL owners typically try to avoid.
NFL owners are at every game. It's
the NFL owner is the star. Like in a lot of markets, the GM can walk down the street and very few people would recognize
less
him.
of a commitment.
Everybody
granted.
knows the owner. Yeah.
Less of a commitment to get to, but they are at every game, and NHL owners are not.
Well,
right?
and oftentimes in that sport as well, you have a head coach who is actually the chief football operator, and the GM is subordinate. Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot pregame, postgame, during the game. Quick walk to the rink or the stadium, a go-to spot for food, drinks, fun. Make it a game night at Greta, 50 West Cordova, or at gretabar.com. We got Frank Corrado coming up. He's got newborn twins, so he joins us from the hospital. We'll get to some hashtags, the best and worst of Twitter, featuring a hell of a highlight. They'll be playing it for years of Abbotsford's Adam Hadwin at the Players' Championship, not to mention a look forward to the Whitecaps in action against Dallas Saturday. Still no losses on the resume after 2 MLS matches. Rob Williams, long time since we caught up with Rob. Good to have him back on the deadline on Lindholm. Oh, poor Rob. He so wanted Phil Kessel content going forward. Like Grady, I could see the evil finger. Oh, Phil Kessel's coming. This is going to be great for
we
Clay.
also open up the first car flag discussion in this city in years.
Probably for the best.
Don't roll your windows down when they are on your car. I learned that the hard way.
Have one.
Exactly. Especially on the freeway. Frank Corrado is next.
Hey, Matt, big thanks to the fine folks at Park Casino. It was a great time before the Colorado game, and there'll be plenty more times, hopefully for us, and certainly for you as a ticket holder. Head to the BC Kitchen, the center bar at Park Casino, and you can do a pregame as well.
Yeah, we had a fantastic time doing our first live pregame show there at BC Kitchen. You get 15% off the game day menu with your game day tickets. As you mentioned, $6 happy hour drinks at center bar, and you're just steps from Rogers Arena. Fantastic spot to pregame. Park Casino, the official casino resort of the Vancouver Canucks.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Great Clips is the official hair salon of the National Hockey League. There are 37 salons in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, all Canadian owned and operated. Download the app and find the nearest to you. When you're up next for a cut, you'll get a ready next text. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Joined now by former Vancouver Canuck TSN hockey analyst and new father, Frank Corrado. Congratulations to you and Jessica on the birth of baby girls, twins, Lauren and Abigail.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, it's been an awesome couple days. They came on Wednesday. It was planned. So we got identical twin girls. Mom, babies are doing great. Proud of everyone already. It's been awesome, and staff at the hospital has been incredible. As you can see, we're still here, but Canucks Twitter doesn't sleep, I heard. So we're back at it.
Well, enjoy these moments, because these next few nights are the quietest nights of your parenthood by country mile. They are secure in their little incubator right now.
Yes.
It's all busy from here. So enjoy these quiet nights.
Yeah, that's
and
what the nurses have been telling us, because we've, you want to get down there and spend as much time as you can with them. They're like, trust me, go sleep. So
Yeah. Well, and now I'm wondering,
Hibernate.
Frank sometimes is texting us at midnight, 1 a.m. watching Canucks games back east. We'll see if that continues.
Frank is not, for those that are seeing Frank for the first time, Frank is not one of those Eastern media guys that doesn't stay up to watch the Canucks. We can testify.
We get texts pretty much every game from Frank.
I'll be honest with you. Maybe in years past, there hasn't been much to stay up for. Like if I was staying up till 1 a.m. the past couple of years, I'd be very disappointed. But with this year's team, they're worth staying up. So it's been good.
And those two little girls might be keeping you up too.
Yes.
So you'll be up anyway. You'll be up anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, we're pointing forward here to the playoffs, Frank, with 15 games left. Our Tim Hortons poll question: who do you want in the first round? LA, Nashville, Vegas. I guess there's still a chance for someone like Minnesota or St. Louis to get on a run. But when we talk matchups for the Canucks in the first round, LA, Nashville, Vegas, does one strike you more than the others as favorable?
I don't want Vegas. I definitely don't want Vegas, just based on their track record last year, the players that they have potentially coming back, and like the decor still scares me there. Like I don't want to go through that for a 7-game series, so we can scratch them off the list. Nashville has played incredible. Like the last little month, like I guess since they canceled their U2 trip, they've been unbelievable. And they're pretty much how Brunette had the Florida Panthers playing when they won the President's Trophy. It was like fast, up tempo, forecheck hard, puck possession, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of what they've built now in Nashville. And they have the UC Saros factor, which I think you take into consideration. But with that being said, they are pretty much like where they would have been at the start of the year if everything went well for them. Okay, so that's they've kind of maxed things out, I would say. LA's an interesting one because LA, when they play really well, they're a team I don't want to play against. But when they're not playing well, there's a lot of holes in their game, and I think their whole 1-3-1 identity, as much as it helps them, I think it's a crutch at times. I think they rely on that too much and they don't get into the puck pursuit and hard forecheck. It's like they want to hang back, and if it doesn't work and there's some leaks in it, then it leads to some goals against, and we see the stretch of hockey that we saw where they weren't playing very well. So with all that being said, like, am I allowed to saw it off between Nashville and LA? Like, I just think, there's pros and cons to playing each of those teams. Obviously, Nashville is going to have the edge in goal. LA's a tougher team to play against, I guess. But either one of those matchups is going to be more favorable than Vegas.
There's danger for both of them. Does the goalie thing just tip the scales, though? Because goalies can steal a series, and the likelihood of that happening with LA is less, right?
Well, I think that's a great point, because you do this like forensic audit of the team you're going to play before you get into this series, and you can sniff out systems, and you can sniff out players' tendencies, and you can find ways to shut certain players down. But you get into a hot goalie, there's no antidote for a hot goalie. We've just seen it so many times where like the guy just will not let pucks past him. We saw it with Bobrovsky last year where he wouldn't let in more than 2. Right? Like you can have things figured out. You can sniff out the 1-3-1, all these kinds of things. You can shut down a power play. Like this happens to Toronto every year. Their power play goes dry when it comes playoff time. So all those things you can account for. There's just that X factor of a hot goalie that it's scary, and that can be the difference sometimes.
On their free agents, Frank, Patrick Allvin allowed that they had made a contract offer to Filip Hronek. Our understanding is that's in the $6.5 million per year range. It was not accepted by Hronek and his camp. Quinn Hughes makes $7.85 million. Is that the limit for Filip Hronek, or can they go above that and make the argument to the captain that, hey, cap's jumping finally, inflationary effect? What says you?
I don't think you pay Hronek more than Hughes. I get the cap is going up. I get the percentage of the cap will be different, but that's your franchise defenseman. He's most likely your MVP this year, depending how you look at things. I don't know. It's just, and I don't think Quinn Hughes is the type of guy that would let that, sway how he views things for sure. But even just looking at the season Hronek has had and the seasons he's had in the past, he's not really an $8 million defenseman. Like I don't know. Like you look at some of the contracts that have been signed by D recently, and the first one I pulled up was Morgan Riley, just in different ages, right? But Riley signed a long extension in Toronto, was 7.5. Like Riley's had years where he's been 0.80 points per game. Like Hronek's never done that. He's also never been healthy enough long enough to do that. Like this year has been a really, really good year for him. But if I don't know, like I just don't see how he's $8 million with Hughes here.
Devil's advocate. They paid a first and second round pick to get him. He has absolutely changed their team and unleashed Quinn Hughes into what we've seen this year by having a like-minded player. Are they pot committed on him?
I would think so, but I would think that's where the player also looks at things and says, as much as they're pot committed on me, I've had my best year playing with Quinn Hughes. Do I want to continue playing with him, or do I just want to go out there and chase $500,000 more just because? I mean, like there's something to be said for that. Hughes isn't going anywhere. If you can tie yourself to him for a long time, tie yourself to this team for a long time where, Pettersson's going to be here now. We know, obviously, like Demko's not going anywhere. JT Miller's got, like, you can build something here where you're winning and be in a sustainably good team year after year. So what is that worth to you in your negotiation? I think you bring up a good point where it's like, maybe the player has leverage over the team. I think the team looks at that and says, we've given you a lot here for you to be a very good player. And we obviously, use you a lot and all that kind of stuff. But I think it could go both ways.
Did Mikhail Sergachev ruin this for the Canucks? Because the points are almost identical to Hronek. He's just over a half point per game for all of his career, except for his contract year where he was amazing last year with 10 goals and 64 points, and he gets 8.5 per year. Did he ruin it?
I don't know. You can say that maybe he did ruin it, but I always saw the Sergachev deal as not a passing of the torch between Hedman and Sergachev, but something of that kind of ilk, where it's like Sergachev eventually is going to be the guy that runs the first power play unit, which we saw last year. And then obviously he's been hurt this year, so Hedman's been back there, but it almost felt like they were changing, changing positions there. Whereas in this situation, there's no
that won't
passing.
Be the case. Yeah.
There's no passing of anything. It's Quinn Hughes 1 and everyone else below him. So that's why I kind of saw that, when Tampa signs that deal, they're forecasting he's going to grow into this, right? And that's why you sign that long-term deal that way. Hronek is like, that's where he's going to be in Vancouver. He's going to ride shotgun with Quinn Hughes, and it's going to be great. And if they keep surrounding this team with good players that fit certain needs, they'll be good for a long time. So I understand the money aspect of it, but I think the roles and the situations might be a little bit different.
Good point.
They kept your boy Lindholm through the deadline, even after the chatter, and Elliot Friedman reported there were some difficult conversations between the Canucks and his agent. Where does that go from here, Frank? How does that have to go from here now that the Canucks have Lindholm and Lindholm has to play for the Canucks?
Listen, you park it and you move on. Like I don't like that kind of chatter getting out about guys, especially a guy who's just got to a new team. He's been playing with new line mates. It's very different, right? And listen, now he gets to the point where you see what the team is trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and you just get on board with it. And at the end of the day, he's got to do that. He's also got to take care of his own backyard because he's a UFA and he wants to cash in as much as he possibly can. And like, obviously, we're not privy to what the contract extension discussions were in Calgary, but if there was some money on the table there for him and now he doesn't maximize that value as a UFA, that's not going to feel good either. So you got to think, if you're the player, you look at that and say, let's just get to work here. Let's make this the best situation we possibly can. And winning seems to cure everything. And if you're branded a winner at the end of the day and you're a big part of a winning team, you'll have, your next contract, you'll probably be very, very happy with, as we see with guys who, go far in the playoffs. And I mean, what an opportunity for him now, because a UFA on a good team that could be primed to make a big playoff push. Like, how many times, I don't know if you guys can remember off the top of your head, how many times do we see like a prominent UFA off a Stanley Cup winning team? I'm trying to think, like Marchessault is up this year.
JT Compher. JT
Right.
Compher.
There you go. Yeah, and he signed a nice ticket, like a bigger ticket than anyone would have thought in Detroit. So and Lindholm has the opportunity to be more than what JT Compher was for the Colorado Avalanche, and has a higher, I would imagine a higher value around the league.
Yeah.
If Tyler Myers stays with the Canucks, it will be for a lower number. The question is, what is that number? Because I know Canucks fans are going to want that number to be minuscule. And I think Canucks fans, as a rule, have come around to Tyler Myers staying on this team, that they don't hate him so much anymore if they're comforted by the fact it's a lower number.
He's had a good year.
But what is that lower number? Because if it's 4.5, I still don't think that people are going to be that ecstatic about it. If it's 2.5, I think people would be. But how realistic is 2.5?
Well, that's the thing, because someone around the league is going to look at him and say he's a giant, he's right-handed, and if we use him properly, like Vancouver has done this year, he's actually quite good. So, I mean, you can it's wishful thinking maybe at 2.5, but look at the way the D market was last year, where, well, even go back 2 years ago, Eric Goodbranson got $4 million on the open market with Columbus. And then last year, guys that you thought were going to make that, 1.5, let's say, take a jump from 900 to 1.5, whether it was Luke Schenn or Ilya Lyubushkin, those guys got 2.75. So in what world are you going to get Tyler Myers for 2.5, unless he really, really wants to stay, and he's willing to accept
Which
that?
Is partly the story here. It's partly the story, but again, the numbers need to be.
It just depends. Do you want to leave $1.5 million with some term on the table? Like what Radko Gudas got $4 million last year, right? So is it $4 million or $3 million? Like Radko Gudas got $4 million or $3 million last year with term attached to it. So like, he would have to be really wanting to stay here and take a significant haircut, which just when you look at the way the market has been for these bigger right-handed defensemen, there's going to be money out there for him somewhere.
A 32-year-old Radko got 4.
He got 4, Frank.
There we go. Yeah, he got $4 million, maybe 3 years.
Frank,
3 years.
Damn it, Frank! I wish you were like 3 inches taller and 40 pounds heavier,
and better at hockey.
Hey, we know you're staying up and watching this team. What do you make of this team, who do not have many losses on the season? It's been a marvelous year, but the losses are often memorable, especially the regulation ones. Like when the Canucks choose to lose, there's often a kind of a concerning story around the losses. But again, there hasn't been a ton of them. What do you make of this team lately?
It's interesting. I like the team. Like I like the way the team plays. I texted you guys early in that Colorado game. It was the first goal of the game, the Miller goal. I'm like, that is literally a systems goal to a T, where it's like Miller drives first of all, slash support. You guys love that term, slash support through the neutral zone, picks up the puck, drives the D, it might have been Taves, drives him back far enough so that he can't like make a play challenging him, hits it back to the behind the net. That's like a quick change of sides. Coaches talk about that all the time. And then it's like, I think Tocchet has said this one before, I formation in front of the net, where there was one forward in front, Miller was in the high slot, and it's a tip from the player in the high slot. And I'm like, dude, I've seen this sequence practiced a million times in my life. So that was nice to see. Like that just tells me that the team is out there, obviously listening to their coach. They have a plan when they play, they execute on it. The thing that I kind of take away the last little bit from this team is they can unravel a little bit. Like when things don't really go their way, go back a couple of weeks to that Winnipeg game at home where it was physical, it was chippy. Not that they can't play that kind of game. They got lost in that kind of game. And then, the game against Colorado, there were bad calls. Like the officiating was not good. But don't get lost in that kind of game either, because in the playoffs, you can call a penalty on every shift pretty much. And how do you react to that? Because sometimes they're going to get called, sometimes they're not. So that'll be a challenge for this team. As much as you can see the mantra of this team when they're playing their best, right? It's in your face. There's a good blend of being hard to play against, skill, all that kind of stuff. But don't get lost in it. Don't get lost in the physical play. Don't get lost in the bad calls, because you still have to stay in the moment and stay focused at the task at hand. And I think that's something the team will have to continue to hone in on here heading towards the playoffs.
Honestly, between the way Tocchet communicates and talking to this guy every week, I feel like I'm back in my football days, reporting days, with all the terminology that has been thrown out. It's incredible. I formation. There you go. Tie the binds as well.
I think Tocchet has said it once maybe this year in one of his pressers. I don't know.
Well, he has said a lot over his pressers. Yeah. Like Blake, he was in here talking the other day about he lets you know what he's thinking, like, because it's a stream of consciousness post game about
he can't help himself.
And like it's clear, like he's eagle-eyed. He sees absolutely everything out there, and he wants to communicate, and he wants to make people smarter hockey fans. And it's been a pleasure covering him this year. Last bit of business, we'll let you get back to the Twins, but were you surprised nothing at the deadline, Frank? Like, we were talking about some of the biggest names on the block, and then it turned out to be nothing last Friday.
A little bit surprised, I guess, but I think it got to the point, unless you were going to make a hockey trade, like a 1-for-1 kind of thing, and send someone out because you need the money to go out and maybe upgrade at a certain position, it probably wasn't going to happen, because, like, how do you just stockpile so many roster players, and how do you manage the cap? Not everyone can be as fortunate as Vegas to have players going on LTIR at this time of year. So yeah, a little bit surprised, but if that hockey trade is not available to you, and I would imagine they would have been deep into, trying to get Jake Gensel there because there's so much familiarity with all the staff. Once that doesn't happen, it's like, okay, you shift your focus to a couple things. And is this actually an upgrade? Is it worth the transaction? And if it's not, you cut your losses and you go with who you got. And I think, evaluating the team after the trade deadline, you still have to feel pretty comfortable with who's in that room, who's on the ice, and the composition of the team. Like, we've been talking about this all year. They're not where they are by accident. They've done it because they've been diligent in the way they played. They've been competitive. And these are the guys that have done it all year long. So it's a good sign for the Canucks that they looked at things and said, we're not going to make a trade just to make a trade, because we got guys here that we also do believe in that have done a good job for us this year.
We'll let you get back to all your ladies. Thank you for this, Frank. Congratulations again. Catch up next week, buddy.
Thank you, guys. We'll get the good audio headphones going again next week.
Oh, all good, man. Thanks.
The gamer headset. See you, Frank.
Yes. See ya.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.